This story primarily takes place between me and my annoying neighbor, who is a member of my community's HOA. As a bit of background, me and my 3 roommates moved into a housing community that is basically just a bunch of cookie-cutter townhomes. All of these homes have garages that open onto streets that wind through the community. This is important later, with your front door opening to a path on the other side of your house. There are also some free parking spots on the edge of the community where there are no houses. When we first moved in, we quickly found out that parking could be a bit of a pain during the day, especially when people had guests during the weekend. Now, my roommates and I admittedly have more cars than the average family. Because we usually have to commute for work, we each have one. We try to make parking easier by using the garage, but we all have tons of sporting equipment, so we can usually only get one car in the garage. When all the parking and all the free spots is full, we just park our cars right up against the garage and leave them there during the day or overnight. We'd seen other neighbors do it, and it still left ample room for people driving on the street to get by. Well, one day my annoying neighbor comes up while my roommates and I are in the garage organizing some stuff and tells us that we can't park there overnight as it's against community rules. Before we had a chance to respond, he added, "And if you do it again, I will personally make sure you're towed." His first comment was pretty reasonable. We'd just moved in and didn't know that rule. But his second comment really just made him sound like a jerk and wasn't necessary. One of my roommates simply responded that we didn't know as we'd just moved in and we wouldn't park there overnight anymore. Well, my neighbor, clearly trying to assert his dominance, responded with good. "You better not, because I'll be watching." Well, from then on, we did follow those rules. If we parked in front of our garage during the day, we would make sure to move before we went to sleep. This worked out for a while until one fateful day. One of my roommates stopped by quickly after work to grab some dinner and clothes before heading out. This was around 7 p.m., so he just parked up against the garage as it would be quicker than the parking spaces. Plus, it was early enough that he didn't think he'd get towed. Around 8 p.m., he went to head out and his car was gone. Guess who was there, though? Our annoying neighbor standing right outside. Immediately, he said to my roommates, "Told you you were going to get towed if you parked here again." The neighbor and my roommate argued for a bit before my roommate came back inside and called the car lot. Well, he ends up finding it closed, so he'll have to get his car in the morning. The kicker, they're going to charge him an overnight fee. All in all, it comes out to $500, which isn't a small amount of money for us. This neighbor has been a jerk to us since we moved in, and even though it wasn't my car that was towed, I took this personally. To make sure we didn't get towed again, we decided to read the community rules, and lo and behold, we found out that the street in front of the garage is actually considered a fire lane, and no one is supposed to park there at any point during the day. Between the annoying neighbor treating us badly and the fact that we could get him yelling at his wife every night, not a big detail to the story, but just wanted to add to my point that this guy just sucked, I started to plan my revenge. Since quarantine started, I've been able to work from home, and my desk conveniently looks out onto the street between the houses. This means that I can clearly see our neighbor's garage. I start to take notice of when he parks his car out in front of his garage. For about 2 weeks, I noticed that he would come home around 1 p.m. and leave again at 2 p.m. On the 3rd week, I decided I would begin the revenge. On Monday, true to his schedule, he stopped by around 1. After about 10 minutes, I gave the tow company a call and said that he was parked in the fire lane and if they could come and remove his car. 20 minutes later, a tow truck rolled up, hooked his car up, and towed it off. About 15 minutes later, our neighbor came out, and I could hear him start to yell back into his house, presumably at his wife. He then left and didn't come back until later that evening after he'd gotten his car. Now it was funny to do this, and I made sure to send snaps to my roommates who don't work from home, but I wasn't done yet. See, this jerk apparently didn't learn the first time because literally the next day he parks in front of his garage again. What should I do? Well, the exact same thing as the day before, of course. Again, he comes out, realizes his car is gone, yells at his wife, and then goes to get it. Now, after this time, he is a bit smarter and parks in an actual spot before going in to get his lunch or whatever it is he does there midday. He does this for about 2 weeks before he decides that it's okay to park in front of his garage again. Well, who is still sitting at their desk every day and notices this immediately. Well, me, of course. And being the concerned resident that I am, I immediately call the tow company and off his car goes again. And again, this is met with yelling. After this third time, I decided I would stop because I genuinely felt bad for his wife, who he seemed to do most of the yelling at as if it was her fault that he was stupid. What I can tell you is that it definitely cost him over $1,000. If he hadn't gotten my roommate's car towed, then we wouldn't have ever found that fun little rule. The best part was that a number of my neighbors would have their cars parked there at the same time, and they'd never have their cars towed, which made it all the better when his was. In a distressing turn of events, a beloved family member's spouse was involved in a devastating accident that left them critically injured. Their condition necessitated a lengthy stay in the ICU, with the grim prospect of permanent disability upon returning home. Determined to provide the best care possible, the family resolved to renovate their cherished forever home, conveniently located near the region's top hospital. The renovations would make the house more accessible, ensuring a smooth transition for their injured spouse. Moreover, the family realized they would require a wheelchair van and various medical equipment to facilitate their loved one's care at home. As the family embarked on this challenging journey, it became evident that substantial financial resources would be necessary. However, accessing the required funds from their long-term savings and retirement accounts would take time. In an effort to expedite the process, the family member contacted their credit card companies, seeking increased credit limits. Despite carrying a balance on some cards due to the ongoing construction, which had to proceed gradually after demolition, they diligently made timely payments on all their cards. Encouragingly, money from their long-term savings was starting to trickle in. Regrettably, a major credit card company proved uncooperative. When the family member attempted to access the account, they were met with a disheartening response. "Sorry, I have to speak to the account holder." Explaining that their spouse had passed away and expressing the intent to settle the remaining card balance, the family member clarified that they were indeed an account holder. However, to their astonishment, the representative from the heartless institution, which we'll refer to as Evil Bank, contended that they held no rights to the account. According to Evil Bank's representative, the account had been opened solely by the deceased spouse, who had merely bestowed a card upon their partner. The family member was incredulous at this blatant lie, as she and her spouse had always been joint account holders since their early days of marriage. Their financial planning had been meticulous, ensuring the protection of their assets through trusts in the event of the worst-case scenario. They had taken great care to secure the well-being of their children and the accessibility of their shared resources. Furthermore, the family member had adeptly managed the couple's business for over a decade, skillfully navigating through regulatory complexities, insurance company dealings, and the intricacies of payroll, finances, and taxes. Needless to say, being condescended to in this manner was deeply disheartening. Sadly, Evil Bank remained obstinate, refusing to grant any access to the account regardless of the circumstances. Astonishingly, they neglected to cancel the card even after being informed of the account holder's demise. This frustrating back-and-forth continued for weeks, with multiple calls made to Evil Bank and futile attempts to escalate the matter to higher-ranking officials within the organization. In a final attempt to make Evil Bank realize the consequences of their rigid policies, the family member confronted them with a series of pointed questions. "So I'm unable to access any part of the account, even to make a payment?" "That's right," Evil Bank responded. "Does that mean the account will be closed then?" "No, only the account holder can do that. Even though the account holder is deceased, only the account holder, ma'am," they reiterated. "So what does that mean for cardholders and their ability to charge on the account?" "Cardholders can continue to use the card until the account holder instructs us otherwise." "You mean the deceased account holder?" "Yes, I cannot assist you further. If you wish to make any changes or payments, you need to have the account holder on the phone." "That won't be necessary." Frustrated by Evil Bank's unwavering stance, the family member decided to play by their rules. She realized that if they set the rules, she would comply and use them to her advantage. With this newfound determination, she directed all the final expenses, medical bills, and as much construction costs as possible onto the credit card associated with the account. She maxed out the card and allowed it to accumulate a balance until the credit card company started calling for payment. "I'm sorry, per your policy. I'm just the cardholder and I'm not responsible for any balance," she firmly stated when confronted by the credit card company. "Ma'am, this balance needs to be paid, or it will affect your credit," they warned. "It better not. I'm not on the account. This is an illegal collections call, and I will be reporting it to the FTC and the attorneys general in your home state and mine. I still have his number on speed dial. You can make your case in court," she declared with a steely resolve. She had become adept at dealing with medical insurance companies over the past decade, successfully navigating their tactics. Recalling that all their assets were held in trusts, she knew that her deceased partner had no assets that could be subject to a lion. The joint checking account had been depleted to cover expenses in recent months, and withdrawals from long-term savings were deposited into her personal account, not the joint one. They had even planned to move any remaining exposed assets once her partner regained consciousness, anticipating the worst outcome. Furthermore, all the business income had been channeled into her name for over a decade, ensuring that she would be eligible for future Social Security benefits. Thus, not only did her partner's estate lack assets to pursue, but he had not had any income for the past decade. Evil Bank found itself with a credit card that had been maxed out and no assets within the estate to pursue for payment. On the other hand, several other credit card companies had cooperated by temporarily raising limits or removing spending caps for significant expenditures, and all their bills were paid promptly and in full. Evil Bank, however, was left to bear the burden of a substantial loss due to their refusal to recognize the family member as a spouse from the outset. The family member had every intention of fulfilling her financial obligations and had never sought to deceive or cheat anyone. She had given Evil Bank numerous opportunities to accept payment, but they consistently denied her status as a spouse or executor. The irony was not lost on her. The only company that had failed to acknowledge her spouse's death ended up footing the bill for the funeral expenses. In our campus, there is a tuck shop, which sells snacks for higher than usual prices. The owner has a contract with the institution, so they don't have any competition. Everyone knows they're expensive, including the higher-up people, but the higher-ups are not the ones with caffeine and sugar cravings. After some lobbying, the institution tried to introduce competition by installing vending machines from another company in another part of the campus. But that building required an access key to enter, meaning visitors couldn't use it. But most people had access, so it wasn't a problem. The problem came when the vending machine owner decided to charge the exact same prices as the tuck shop. Here's the revenge part. A cohort lived near the vending machines and was able to monitor the arrival times of the refill guy. Whenever he left, we would put up a sign on the machine saying, "Machine eats your coins," and remove the sign before he arrived each time. As a result, the company's sales were low. After a while, we arranged someone to walk by when they were checking the machine and told him that the tuck shop owner made an emotional plea that the vending machine was stealing her business, and that she needed our support to survive. That's why no one would buy from the vending machine, especially when it charges the exact same prices. Not long after, the vending machine's prices dropped below the tuck shop prices. Now was time to do the reverse. We first made the vending machine more accessible to everyone by pushing it closer to the main entrance, and put a bunch of rubbish bins in its old place so that the vendor couldn't move it back, and wedged open the door so that it was accessible by everyone and anyone who forgot to bring their access card, which will hurt the tuck shop sales and will probably cause them to drop their prices soon.